Welcome to another edition of the Lost and Foundry Show. We tried to have one in June, but had a couple of hurdles. And I know some of the people in my life would say the devil got in the way. And probably, honestly, I got in the way. We tried to line people up. Things happened. It's summertime. That's how it goes.
Sure.
We're glad to be back for July, though, for this edition of the Lost and Foundry Show. It's been a great 4th of July week. The ladies got to go out yesterday and have some fun on the lake. And
they did.
Thanks for joining us. We're so excited to be talking about the Women's Center and Tawana's story and all the things that Tawana has learned as kind of the leader of the women's program over the years. So we'll talk about all of that, all of the journey things. Before we get to that, we're in the middle of Summer of Prayer. And Summer of Prayer is our campaign to every week join together to pray for something in common. So far, this week's theme is donors or supporters, which is you guys. So we've been praying for you guys all week. If you want to join in Summer of Prayer, go to our website link. I'll put it on the bottom of the screen here. In August, we're going to have a prayer walk. So you need to be looking out for that. You're going to be here on campus and coming here to the Cup to pray for the women, going to the Men's Center, the Worship Center. We're going to go to the Outreach Center. So make sure to look out for that. Sign up for the prayer walk. We want you here on campus praying for the people that are having life change here, where they're having the life change. And we want you to see the facility and see some of the hurdles that we have to overcome with the facilities, but also just to see where the life change is happening and try to catch the vision of this place. All right, So now let's talk about the Women's Center, the women's program. Tawana, you've been doing women's recovery ministry for quite a while now.
Yes.
I mean, you've been director here at the Foundry for 16 years?
It was 19 in May.
19 in May. Wow.
But I like to tell everybody I started when I was like 12. So that I sound like I'm younger.
So that puts you in your like mid-20s now.
Exactly.
You've been doing it since you were a baby.
Yeah, for sure.
So how do you end up in this kind of ministry and then end up at the Foundry?
Yeah, so I got saved in 1998, just radical transformation in my life. And the church that I was attending, the men and women of the Foundry, which was the City of Hope when I started, before the name change.
That's an interesting time to come in as City of Hope. Because it didn't last very long.
Yeah, it really didn't. A few years before I got here. But anyway, so I heard about Adopt a Table, which the guys still do at Christmas. Yeah. And so the guys were coming to our church on Sunday nights where I was attending, and I said, "Where are they from?" And they said, "The City of Hope's Drug and Alcohol Recovery." And I was like, "That's cool." So we got invited to do Adopt a Table. So our church adopted a table. I came out, met the guys, met a lot of the staff, and I was like, this is something that I want to be a part of. So probably starting 98, 99, I started coming as a volunteer. And so fast forward a little bit, and in 2004, I had finished college. I had graduated Sanford with a degree in counseling. And it just so happens the women's director that was here at the time went to church with me where, the guys were coming at night. She was actually in the choir with me. We wore the full robes and everything.
That's fun.
Take it back. Yeah. And so she said, "Hey, we're hiring. We need a part-time counselor." And I was like, I'm about to graduate with a degree in counseling. So I came down, interviewed, and got the job as a part-time counselor.
Yeah. So talk about the counseling process. I can't imagine it's the easiest job in the world. I mean, and all the difficulties that come with it. So talk a little bit about it.
Oh, my goodness. Yes. Well, I still say to this day, even though I'm director of women's program, that the counseling is the toughest job at the Foundry. Yeah. And it was really an eye-opener because even though I had came from many of the places where the ladies, came from, to have ladies coming in just every hour, and it's like you kind of counsel them, lift their spirits, right? Get them on the right page, hear their stories, send them out the door, and then here comes the next lady that's down. And so all day you're spending your time just like trying to help them sort through the mess and kind of find the roots of what's going on. And you do that all day long. So it is a very challenging job here for sure.
So there's kind of like a Hollywood or people who aren't involved with counseling or have never been in a counseling session, they have a way that they see counseling. Here at the Foundry, what would you describe counseling, the process of counseling as?
We really want first to establish trust, because so many of the women who come through our doors, trust has just been broken from so many people, so many authority figures, caregivers, everybody. And so trust is so important. So we want to create an environment where they trust us. So, we want to be on time. We want to see them consistently. We want to listen. All the things of counseling, like not checking your watch, just their undivided attention, so they can begin to develop that trust. And then from there, it's just that process of helping them. I say it's not your counselor's job to point out, but we do help guide them to some of the root causes of what's feeding that addiction and those behaviors, because, once you remove the addictions, the underlying issues are all there. Addiction is just the surface problem. That's really gone the day they come in, right? They stop using drugs or alcohol, and then there's all the issues underneath. So counseling just helps them get to the roots of some of those problems and just helps to speak truth to some of the things that they've been believing for so long.
Yeah. And as a counselor, you hear things that maybe you wish you didn't have to know about. And
yes.
What's the process? And maybe the majority of the job of a counselor is trying to separate what happens in the counseling session and the rest of your life.
Yeah, it's a really big challenge. One of our counselors, when I first started, who had been here a while, he kind of explained it like this. He said, before I came to the Foundry as a counselor, he drove the garbage truck, for lack of a better term. So he said every day his job was to go around and collect everyone's garbage, but at the end of the day, he took his truck to the dump site and all the garbage went out. And so he gave me that analogy as a counselor. He said he brought that into his counseling, that experience, and he said every day at the end of the day, we have to go, and of course, we dump everything to Jesus, right? We dump it off to the Lord, cast our cares on Him, so that the next day we can go and continue to pick up, help pick up the messes. And I thought that was such a good analogy for me, because it helped me know, okay, at the end of the day, there's a process. I have to get rid of, so to speak, the things that I've heard, so I can go home to my kids and my family without all of that coming with me. And so that the next day I'm refreshed and I can help, receive the ladies that come the next day.
Yeah. So talk about you're doing part-time counseling at the Foundry. Now, how do you make this transition to director of women's program?
Yeah, so it wasn't like a real pretty shift, but
is anything
as
at
most
the Foundry
things here is not very picture perfect. But no, I kind of came in one day and our women's director that I had gotten really close to had made some bad decisions and led to her termination. And so I was part-time counselor and somehow assistant women's director. We've never had one since me, but I was there. And
I'll put it next on the list.
Yeah,
things to look into.
Please, thank you. So Pastor Bill just came and said, hey, you're next in line. Do you want to do it? And at first I said, no. I came here to counsel. I've seen what the women's director has to do, and I'm not confrontational. I don't want to have to dismiss people. It was just such a hard decision. And so he actually came and he said, Tawana, if you don't do it, we're going to have to hire somebody who knows nothing about the women, nothing about the Foundry, and they're going to be your boss. And I said, okay, I'll do it.
So talk about, I think the thing about your job that I think is most intimidating is the dismissal, having to make that decision that what's best for the program and for the participant is at this time they should not be here.
Yeah, it's a hard decision when you have to make that decision, but I feel like by the time we've gotten to that point, there's been a lot of grace that's been extended. There's been a lot we've tried to work through, a lot of other ways we've tried to resolve just their behavior and some of the things, the choices that they've made. I mean, sometimes it's cut or dry, if they've used or something like that. But I I always, number one, I have other staff members that I consult before making a big decision like that. I really try to get more than just me involved.
Absolutely.
I think, there's wisdom in a multitude of counselors. And so it's ultimately my decision, but I have other people that help. And I always want to be able to lay my head on the pillow at night and sleep good with the decision I've made. So if there's ever a chance I can extend grace, I always choose to do that. The Bible says, restore gently those that are caught in sin. So I always try to lead with that. But sometimes just to keep the body healthy, or if the decision that the program participants made is just too much to keep her in the program, then we do have to dismiss them. But it's really after we know we've exhausted all energies. And like sometimes I'll just give mercy where I'm like, okay, I've already given mercy 3 times, but if I don't get a peace about it, then I don't do it. I'll give them another chance. And it kind of extends the rope to them, of what they do with it. So by the time we get to a dismissal, we're usually really confident in our decision to dismiss, kind of based on all those things.
What do you think is the biggest thing that keeps a participant from taking the journey seriously? That they've taken the step to be here, or they're in enough legal trouble where this is their next best step, is coming to a program like this. So, but lots of people come from the street, they've made the decision to be here, but then they can't take the process seriously enough to.
Yeah.
So what do you think that is?
Well, I think about Mark chapter 4, that's the parable of the seed, the sowing the seed, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes the seed is sown and it just lands on ground that's rocky. It talks about it has weeds in it, and it comes up and chokes out the plant that's trying to grow. And then sometimes you have those girls that it's just a readiness of heart. They're ready to make the change, and you start seeing that the seeds that are being planted here at the Foundry, you kind of watch them begin to take root and to grow, and you see her begin to transform. And I think a lot of times there's just like that scripture talks about, there's outside factors, or she's just not ready. Maybe she hasn't hit the bottom that a lot of the other ladies have hit. Sometimes, children are a factor. The ladies are really driven to fight to get their children back. And sometimes, unfortunately, addiction overrides some ladies, and that's just, they're just not offended. You hear people say they're not ready.
Yeah.
And there really is just that season of a readiness of heart that we want to see that really makes their recovery successful.
Yeah, I think sometimes people on the outside, they hear that someone's here for the second or third time. But we've truly seen people come here half a dozen times, and it was the 6th time that they needed.
Yeah, it's true. It's true, yeah.
So, and Bruce Pearl said it great. He says, God gives us second chances, third chances. But every day that I wake up is another chance that God's given me to do better today. And so we want to be a ministry with the same attitude. That
for sure.
Today we might have to send them on their way because they're not ready to make a change.
Yeah.
And we're just trusting in God that they end up back here, or they
That's
end up at another facility that maybe they need a different location. Maybe it's somewhere, lots of ladies.
That's a good point.
Leave here and go to Love Ladies and find great success at Love Ladies, and vice versa.
Yeah.
So
every program is different, and that's one thing. Just in looking at how recovery has changed over the years, I feel like the programs, we have so much camaraderie together. There's times a girl may call and I'm like, hey, I don't know that you're a fit for here, and we will refer her to another program, in our area, another Christ-centered program where we believe either she'll have a little more leniency or a little less leniency, kind of depending. So, we realize we're not the only, corner on the market, so to speak. We're here for certain people, and there's other great programs as well.
Yeah.
So
it's exhausting trying to do it yourself. So we're glad that there's other ministries out there we trust to help solve the problem altogether.
For sure.
So you talked about how things have changed. Even, 10, 15 years ago, there was a lot of tension among ministries. But let's talk about within our ministry itself, how have things changed since you said yes to Pastor Bill to take over the program?
Oh my gosh, we don't have enough time on the podcast to go over how much things have changed. One thing I've had to learn is just to be adaptable. because change is part of, every organization that's growing, there's change. And you just kind of have to be able to go along with those changes. But we've changed in so many different ways. One way that Micah described not too long ago was he wanted to, instead of our reach being so far out but not reaching deep, he wanted to narrow the reach and have deep, roots that run a little bit deeper, which is part of some of our recent program change.
Yeah.
The reasons for that is so that we had more quality time, with our program participants. The Genesis process, we implemented a great relapse prevention curriculum. One thing just personally I think that's been such a great change is just speaking from the women's program is our staff. We really have so much unity within our staff members.
Absolutely.
Every one of us, we really are like a family. And so when the days get hard, we're there for each other. If there's a frustration, we go to each other. There's nothing, no backbiting or people overstepping boundaries. We all know what we're here to do. And we just serve each other, with respect and dignity. And so I think that's been a great, a great change over the years, I guess.
Sometimes it feels like, we'll have spats about stuff, about the way things, somebody thinks it should be done one way and another, and we have a spat. And when you leave the room, there's like no tension between anybody because I wonder sometimes if it's shared trauma, if there's so little resources and we're trying to do so much that when we leave the door, we know we can't be thinking about any of
it's like, okay, he'll deal with it, whatever. I probably needed to stay in my lane anyway.
So talk about, you've been doing this for a long time, and even I've been here for 6 years, and I don't do counseling, I'm doing fundraising. And even in the 6 years since I've been here, hearing the stories and seeing the number of people who've left the program and have overdosed, and even my small exposure with that can wear on you a little bit. Mm-hmm. So you've obviously become friends with women who've died, and there's lots of emotional, there's lots of trauma that you have to deal with on that. And you've been doing it for 19 years. What keeps you getting up in the morning, coming here, taking women to the lake and giving them a good time? I mean,
it's a good question. It really is. Probably about 6 months into counseling here, I had my first girl I was really close to. We had a great 2-hour session on a Friday. She goes home on pass that weekend. I came in Monday, and she never came back. And that was the first time I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can do this long term. Mm-hmm. I was so upset trying to figure out what I did wrong, what I could have said differently. And I'm telling you, I can't say I had this vision where the sky parted, but the Lord really showed me in prayer one day that the Foundry is like an apple tree. And when you have an apple tree, sometimes there are, apples that may fall off the tree, but those apples will go into the ground, and the seeds that were in those apples can actually produce another apple tree. And so the Lord said, Tawana, your job is to plant seeds. Others will water, but only I can bring the increase. And so I just began just seeing myself as, I removed myself from it so much and said, I'm just a seed planter. That's all my job is. I just plant the seeds of hope, seeds of wisdom, seeds of salvation. I plant those seeds, and it says others come along that water, but only God can bring the increase. So their success or failure is not determined by me. I plant the seeds. Mm. And if I've done my job well at the end of the day in planting seeds, then I'm able to kind of let them go and just leave the rest of the work up to the Lord. And it really has helped me a lot.
Do you think that kind of detached may be the wrong word? You think that keeps you from becoming close to the women at some level?
Well, I think there has to be some. Yeah, I know you hate to use the word detached, but there is a part of me that just will not allow myself to get too close because of the possibility that
Yeah.
that they could be gone the next day, or worse, because we have seen a lot of ladies that have passed away, and that is very, very hard.
Yeah.
You just kind of learn you can't attend every hospital visit, you can't go to every funeral. You just really have to pace yourself and realize if you want to run this race like a marathon and not a sprint, there's just certain things you kind of have to pull back from in order to be effective for the long run.
You use the word marathon, which is interesting because
Yeah.
I've recently become interested in running.
Okay.
And one of the units that you use to run a longer distance instead of a short distance is you watch your heart rate. So it's kind of interesting that
wow.
you're watching your own heart rate to say, what can I take right
Yeah.
now? And if I can't take it right now, then I'm just going to slow down. And
That's a really good way to put it. Guard your heart with all diligence, right? Is what the word says. Out of it flow the issues of life. So you're right. There is, I think guarding is maybe a better word than detached that I use. You just stay a little guarded, but it's to keep you healthy so you can continue to help other people. It's not against the person.
yeah, let's talk about the flip side.
Okay.
So let's get off of the trauma bad part of that. I've recorded personally a couple of testimonies of women and we've had graduations who were incredible.
Yeah.
So talk about a story that stands out for you over just the last year of a lady whose life was transformed here at the Foundry.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Well, I have one that comes to mind, and her life was completely transformed. Not this year, but a couple of years ago.
Okay.
But it comes to my mind because she kind of fell off the wagon, so to speak, a little bit, and had a moment of relapse. But she reached out, and we've made a commitment to be there no matter what. Like, we want to be there. If you reach out, or if we feel led to reach out, like, we want to be there. So we ended up just spending a lot of time together and having some accountability in there. And I just watched, like, with a little bit of unconditional love, a little bit of time, giving her some mercy and grace, helping restore her, like, the foundation that she had gotten here was so solid that she was able to build back off of that. So I watched her just come back, and I think it taught me so many lessons, and I think it's such a lesson for other people is just, if you mess up or you slip up, reach out. Like, we're here, we're your family, and you don't have to have graduated the program. Like, some people have left or been dismissed, but if they just reach out and we know that they're hurting, we want to be there for hurting women. I mean, that's what we do, whether you're at the Foundry, out of the Foundry, whatever. And so that testimony just sticks out because she's just fully back restored, and it just kind of shows that failure's not final. And the foundation she got here was really solid, and I love that she felt the comfort to call back. That makes you feel so good about what you do at the end of the day when somebody trusts you to reach out and share their garbage with you. We love hearing the victories and the testimonies, but with the ladies that we deal with, like, we want them to be willing to share the hard things about what they're going through, the bad days, the times maybe they've fallen, and let's work together and come back together as a unit and help get you back restored. I mean, I've had people do that for me. I mean, we all have those people we reach out to, and we want to be those. We want to be those people that help them too. So.
Yeah. What would you say to someone who's thinking about taking on this journey of a sober living, and they're watching this right now, and they're just should they, shouldn't they? What would you say to that person that's struggling with that decision?
Yeah. Eventually, you have to make a step towards the pain. One of the ways I put it to the ladies is there's two kinds of pain. There's the pain that leads to victory, which is the pain that you experience while you're in recovery, dealing with some of the hard topics. But then there's also the pain that leads to regret. And I think that's the pain of just staying in addiction. Either way, there is pain. If it was easy, everybody would be doing it, right? I mean, our doors would be busting at the seams if everybody that's dealing with drug and alcohol addiction were here. But a lot of people don't want to start it because that it's going to be a painful process. And I would be lying if I said it's not painful some days. But once you get through that pain, There's victory on the other side of that pain. There's redemption. There's reuniting of your family. There's the things that you felt like are forever lost that there's still hope for on the other side of that pain. Or you stay in the pain that leads to regret, and that pain just leaves you in that cycle of shame and guilt and regret, frustration. It just keeps you in that addiction. And so I would just challenge them, just like if you're there and you need help and you don't know if you want to make the step, just make the step. Just make the first call. Like, we'll let you come here. We'll let people come and just do a tour. Just come and meet some of our staff. Maybe talk to one of our ladies, let her share her testimony with you. Tour our facility to kind of see where you would be laying your head at night and see what kind of, peaceful feeling that you get about that. Because I believe that God's presence and his love awaits you here. And if we can just get you in the door and let you feel it, let you experience it, it's worth it.
Yeah.
It's worth it for the benefits of being clean and being sober.
Yeah.
That brings.
And we believe that when God made you, that he made you a strong and beautiful and a whole person.
Yes.
And that when you engage the recovery process, that you begin to unearth a beautiful creation, a creation made in God's own image. Right. And the best thing you can do today is to take the next step. Right. Don't say, I'm going to think about it tomorrow. The best thing you can do is go to the website, find a phone number, and call somebody. Fill out a form. It'd take you 2 minutes to go to our contact page, put in your name, put in what you're struggling with, and zip it off to our women's program. And we call every one of those people that send in a form. So
we do.
Make the next step. Do it today. We believe that there is a version of you 6 months away today. In 6 months, you could discover, and I believe in 2 weeks, you could be here and already be experiencing breakthroughs and healing and the power of God. So make the next step. Go to our website today. Tawana, thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
Your insight is incredible.
Thank you.
And I think people are really going to get a lot out of this.
I hope so.
If you got a lot out of it like I did, make sure to leave a comment. Tell Tawana how great of a job she did. Also, don't forget about Summer of Prayer. That's in the description. Join the change today. Help us support these women in the program by becoming a recurring giver or becoming a volunteer. Get engaged, get involved. We hope you had a great 4th of July week. We hope you have a great next week. I'll see you Monday probably. Hope you have a great week. See you soon.